Hello everybody, this is Zalias, and today I'm going to be covering a topic that I've pretty much covered before, but I've been on Comic Vine for a couple weeks now, and I will be covering the title of this video, the good, the bad, and the stupid. Now, I don't really care if it comes off as inflammatory. I've never claimed to not be. It's not my intention to do so. It's more so to call out logic. Everybody's anonymous, so to speak, with the site, so I don't really care. I'd be happy to debate anyone over this, but mostly what will be covered is very specifically AP versus DC in depth, quite in depth, as that will be a very contentious point, as I will show. I will go point by point and bring up a lot of what happens. Now, the second thing is that almost everything here, will be based on Yu Yu Hakusho compared to Naruto. Reason that is on Comic Vine and most sites, Yu Yu Hakusho, it's very, very downplayed. And Naruto, of course, is very, very much overhyped. That contrast makes it an interesting point, a very interesting topic, in my opinion. It's not exactly a brave take to be like, oh man, DBZ beats your verse that you're wanting. Or, DBZ is stronger than Naruto. Who cares, right? Everybody knows that. But due to the nature of how downplayed Yu Yu Hakusho is compared to the overhype that Naruto gets, interesting. You'll get interesting responses. Very interesting logic. So we will be covering that. And for those who have been with me, you'll know I've explained AP versus DC before. You, too, will actually learn something new with this. But let's delve into what it's like with some Comic Vine logic. First, the good. We have people like Wushu here, 59. I don't know if he is someone who is subscribed. Whether he is or not, he has shown conceptually to understand things like AP and DC. Amongst other things, not to delve too long on that because I don't want the video to go on too long. But he's far from the only one. We'll get to that. And there has actually been a successful push for an understanding of the power that Yu Yu Hakusho, specifically, don't care about it being specifically Yu Yu Hakusho, whether you're a Yu Yu Hakusho fan or not. Just that there's been a successful push in showcasing the logic that goes behind a verse that is downplayed, such that it's not as downplayed anymore. That is a good thing. I consider that a success. But it's not. Of course, it's got its challenges. But let's cover some AP and DC because that will be the crux of this. Let's get this out of the way so that I can cover the logic that you'll see. Cool. So Wushu brings up, there's a problem or a lack of education I've been noticing about battles on Comic Vine. DC is simply the capacity of a character to cause destruction. Attack potency is the term used to determine the amount of damage a character can produce. Right. Flashier DC feats does not automatically equal more powerful. Here I'll give an example. Picture 1. Another shout out to Wushu real quick because a lot of what he brings up makes it very easy on me for this video. Anyways, we have Psychos' Continental Slicer. Yep, impressive. Versus a single punch from Vegeta. Doesn't look nearly as impressive. However, which of the two looks more devastating, and not just looks more devastating, but is more destructive to the environment, or just causes a higher, has a higher DC? Obviously, Psychos. Which of the attack actually has more AP or raw power behind it? Vegeta, and it's not even close. Someone says like, what if someone's DC is greater than their AP? Well, we can see that. You see that all the time. The DC being higher than the AP simply means the AP is already inherently spread throughout the AoE of the attack. Obviously so, right? Force, and I don't want to get too deep into it right this second, but very quickly. The force of an attack isn't ever pinpointed into a singular point, and then like the rest of the attack is like a phantasmal force that has no actual physical like interactions with the environment. The entirety of the attack has a certain size, a volume, a length, width, and height. It's a three-dimensional space that we are supposed to be taking it as, right? Things have volumes to them. It is the entirety of the volume of the attack that makes up the totality of the force. And so, if you're asking, like, what if someone's DC is greater than their AP, you have to understand that the AP is spread across the AoE of the attack. So the size of the attack matters. Now, if you want the DC to be greater than the AP, simply put, have the AoE of the attack be enormous. That doesn't necessitate that the actual potency of the attack is any higher. Now that doesn't mean that the DC is always greater than the AP, so that'll also be covered. But simply put, the bigger the AoE of the attack, the bigger the DC, so long as the AP can surpass the durability of what it is affecting. Are we all cool with that? Cool. So, Piccolo's Moon Vaping Blast versus Raccoon's Island Vaping Eraser Gun. Moon gets destroyed versus an island. Which one is more impressive destruction-wise? Piccolo. Which one has more attack potency? Raccoon. Quite obvious. And yeah, let's see. I want to show that people end up like AP is a product of DC. Somewhat, so they scale with each other. It's not that one scales to the other, which will be covered later as well, but they scale with each other. Just keep that in mind. And then, like, he says, like, yeah, which has more AP? A punch from Superman that only makes a crater versus a mountain vaping Biju bomb. Depends on the Superman, of course, but it doesn't matter. It could be Superman that, you know, could destroy a planet with a punch, could still only make a small crater if he wanted to with a punch. And that doesn't change the AP. Then you have weird people like this. Like, this thread is nothing more than a way for people to get out of posting legitimate feats. Attack potency can't be quantified unless it's stated or shown via DC. And what? I know somebody gives a good example to how crazy that is. Yeah, like, AP not being possible to quantify or calc is so laughably untrue that I can think of 5 real-world instances where it debunks that notion. Meteors that can destroy something island to large island level actually pack continental to multi-continental worth of energy. In joules, right. On average, hurricanes produce over 12 gigatons of energy in a day, yet cities are rarely leveled, unlike a 21 kiloton bomb. This one's a very obvious one. .45 Colt bullet can carry hundreds of joules. A baseball can produce 162 joules, which is putting a bigger hole in a wall. Obviously, baseball has higher DC. Bullet has far more AP. We all get the idea. AP exists, and it's about damn time we retired the whole gist of this site with flashy feats first. Obviously, right. Thank you. Here we have more examples. Because, yeah, you know, this whole clash, it was like, man, we're gonna destroy the planet, yada yada. And then you got Goku just doing this to, I think his name was Birder. I'm bad with names. This is technically the more impressive feat, based on the character he's doing it to. But it's way less DC. It would still require more AP. Because he would there wouldn't be this huge clash going on here if it was this guy. He would just overpower and win. Then you have Anime Freak of all people saying, like, I hate that people don't seem to realize this. Like, yeah, you can have freaking wall level DC, but your AP can be effing universal or even out. That's true. Yes. The thing about this is that, let's see. I guess I may have skipped through. The thing about it is that a lot of people end up saying, like, this is common sense. This is common sense. Like, who doesn't know this? Nobody knows this. And I'm not even certain. I don't even trust that the people who say that it's common sense actually know it. Because I've we'll be moving on to the bad. But the good is, like, you can see here, a lot of people are like, man, yep, this is common sense. We should know about this. Of course, AP. There's a few people, and then they get shot down. It's like, no, like, what? It's about time that people understand that potency is different from destructive capacity. Well, I'm now notified by this, and by this thread from when I got called out, and I break it down into mathematics. I'm going to break it down even more. So here's where I'm going to break down AP versus DC to not just a mathematical level, but to an even more mathematical level than that, because it's going to be more detailed than just this post. But I'll read this post first. So I'm like, yeah, this thread is perfect. I'd only highlight one thing. Hopefully a trap isn't being set where people think that the AP must equal at minimum the DC shown. The idea DC can't be greater than AP makes sense. You would think that, but that's compared to the, like, actual AP. I shouldn't have said actual. Let me read it what I actually mean by it is, saying the DC can't be greater than the AP, that would be compared to the totality of the AP that people are thinking of, and not, but that's not like to the, that's not to the perceived AP. So, let me see if I can really explain this, because obviously it sounds confusing just reading it out. So, the totality of the AP is there within the AoE of the attack. However, it is spread out across the AoE, the size of that attack. What this means is that there's, like, the totality of an AP, and then you have the perceived AP. Oh boy. Hopefully everybody can follow me. Let's take my favorite example, an attack that is the size of a mountain. Big ol' huge AoE. And you are the size of a human with unknown amounts of durability. The attack that hits you has a set, if it's the size of a mountain, it can't possibly all hit you. You can't possibly take all of the force. You are taking fractions of the force. The AP of it, if you were to measure it in its totality, you would be taking an attack with a total force of X. That would be like the total AP whatever, when you're trying to just measure its totality. But that's irrelevant if you can only take fractions of the AP. That would be more so like the perceived force, as in like the force that actually does the affecting of what's being destroyed. Because you, as that size, would be taking fractions of that totality. And therefore, the durability needed to overcome that attack would be equivalently so, a dividend, if you will, divided that same amount of AoE that you are compared to that attack. Because that's the fractions amount worth of potency that you are actually needing to take on. Hopefully that makes it very clear, because that's what I was trying to get across. So yeah, DC is basically the AoE of the AP. Would be an easy way to consider it. As the more AoE you have, necessarily so, the more DC you have, to a multiplicative nature. That does not apply to AP. Now, so I'll just keep reading, because now I see I'm going to bring up the mountain-sized AoE attack, because it is my favorite example. It makes it very easy. Yeah, if you take a mountain-sized AoE attack that destroys a mountain of rock, people say the DC is mountain level. Correct. People also say the AP must at least be mountain level. That's totally not true. Just as how mass is a multiplier in force, right? We know that? Do we know that? It's a dividend to AP, as, once again, for you to factor the AoE of something, you are necessarily so spreading that force. You are dividing that force or potency across that AoE. So take that mountain-sized AoE blast that destroyed the mountain of rock. Is it mountain level DC? Yes. Is it mountain level AP? We don't know. There are other qualifiers, and it could be as little as simply base rock level, depending on where it blew up, for it to take out the mountain amount of rock. So, right. Say you had something the size of a mountain that was to go against, well, a mountain from the inside out. And the size of it was literally the size of the whole mountain it's destroying. It could just simply be like rock level, or maybe slightly above rock level in potency, and it would destroy the mountain. But it actually, if you need it broken down more than that, let's look up something real quick. Don't worry, baby. Let's look up something real quick. Energy to vaporize basalt. Because I had been looking at this before. So, basalt, rock, right? Just basalt for an example, because I know that this actually scales from a Yuhaksha feet. You will see here, if you're looking at the total heat of vaporization, you're looking at kilojoules per centimeter cubed. And we'll take the low end and just say 24.7 kilojoules per centimeter cubed. Why is it kilojoules per centimeter cubed? Kilojoules is the energy type, 24.7 is the amount of that kilojoules. Per is to divide by. What is it being divided into? What is that energy divided, like, what is it condensed into? A centimeter, but not just a centimeter in a single dimension, cubed, as we are looking at volume, length, width, and height, a centimeter in all directions. What this essentially says is to vaporize basalt rock, for every centimeter cubed, you need 24.7 kilojoules of energy. So, let's just say you have a mountain-sized, a mountain, alright, a mountain of basalt. You don't get to say, oh, it has a total energy of X, and, well, that's more energy than a mountain, therefore, it could destroy the mountain. And simply say, actually, rather, my first example is simply, it could be simply rock level, and have the AoE to destroy a mountain. Well, for example, the reason why the AoE matters so much is because it's literally the mathematics behind it. They are dividing the AoE, the dividend here, you see the per centimeters cubed, they are going for the volume. Every cubed centimeter requires 24.7 kilojoules of energy. If you have less, so let's say that's what's required to actually totally vaporize basalt. Let's say instead, for every centimeter cubed, the attack has 15 kilojoules. So it only has 15 kilojoules per centimeter cubed of energy. What you're saying is it is less potent. The energy is less concentrated. As you concentrate it down to the centimeter cubed, it is not high enough to vaporize basalt. Okay. However, let's say the attack was just 1 centimeter cubed in AoE. Well, then how many kilojoules would have been produced by that attack if it was 15 per centimeter cubed? The answer is 15. Amazing. However, what if the AoE, multiplicatively so, was 1,000,000 times bigger. Well, now the totality energy produced by this attack is now 15 million kilojoules. And yet, its potency of 15 kilojoules per centimeter cubed is no higher. It would still destroy millions of times more than, I suppose not millions of times more than if it was 24.7 kilojoules per centimeter cubed, but like hundreds of thousands of times more, or maybe still higher than that. You get the idea. It would still be vastly more destructive, and yet have far less AP. The amount needed to destroy rock could simply be met by the potency, and that's it. Destroying a mountain with a mountain-sized AoE does not mean it is mountain AP. It could be rock level AP, and via the AoE, its destructive value allows for a mountain to be destroyed. Do you understand that there's volume, and that is divided or multiplicative based on the AoE of what's doing the destroying? Hopefully, this is very clear to everyone. That was a bit more in depth with what I'm about to say here, but this uses some real numbers as well. So DC equals amount of matter destroyed. AP equals the amount of matter destroyed and to what degree the matter is destroyed, such as vaporization, pulverization, etc., divided by the AoE of the attack. Let me make this clear. Divided by. You might mistakenly think that it's only division, but to divide by a decimal is to multiply. Okay? Now, this factors in 0 scaling. So none of this means the AP must be this level. Okay? But speaking in terms of what feats show, as in what the feat is showing, with no scaling involved. Let's look at an example. So if the DC is a mountain, that's what's destroyed, and we just give the mountain a arbitrary value of 100, then your DC equals 100 if you destroy a mountain. Cool. Let's plug in for AP. If what you destroyed was that mountain, that's 100, because that's the amount of matter destroyed, divided by the AoE of the attack, right? Which is 100. This right here, divided by the AoE of the attack, is the per centimeter cubed that's going on. That's where this part of the math comes in. And this is without factoring in the degree of the destruction, such as vaporization, pulverization, just for simplicity. As that would be another multiplier in a sense. Do this, and this is a feat that shows an AP of 1% of the total DC. So the total AP as a value may be as high as the DC, but is spread across the AoE, such that the AP acting on any given thing, in this case, is but like 1%. In this very specific example. It could be less than 1%, because this is assuming like going against a mountain. Depending on what it's hitting, it could be less. It could be more. If the total force is the size of a mountain, and all of it hits an island will take that entire force. The totality of the AP. Okay? So it could be more than 100%. But for the example of what it's destroying something the same equal to its AoE. So what's shown is but like 1% AP of its DC. In contrast, let's say someone busts the same size mountain with a human-sized fist. Hulk's is bigger, but a feat like that, right? If you know with Yu Hakusho, of course, this would also be a Sensui feat, except he does it with air pressure. DC still equals a mountain, which still equals 100. Cool, so 100. We divide that, like the centimeters cubed. We're dividing that. Instead of a centimeter cubed, the attack isn't a single centimeter cubed, though we could standardize it. We could have every attack, every feat, measured down to the centimeter cubed. That would totally work. That mathematically would make sense. But you could additionally, to shorthand it, to shortcut it, if you needed to, you could divide it by what it's actually doing as well. The AoE of a hand, the volume of a hand cubed, if you will, is divided into what's destroyed. If that's a 100, a hand goes into a mountain, let's say 0.00001 times. It's a made-up value, way less than a mountain. Using this made-up value, the AP would show to be like 10 million, 10 billion times more potent. Point is it is multiplicatively more potent by the higher degree that you can cause the same amount of destruction with a smaller amount of AP, or with a smaller amount of AoE, because the force is necessarily so in a smaller AoE more concentrated. So going back to like the centimeter cubed, right? If one attack is the size of a mountain and the other attack is a fist, and they both have, let's say, 15 million, as I used before, 15 million total energy in them. Well, if we're looking for the potency, we could break it down to how much energy is within those attacks to the centimeter cubed. Well, to a mountain, if you were to divide its AP down to a centimeter cubed, you could get something as low as like the 15 kilojoules per whatever. But for a hand, it divides into that AoE of a hand millions of times less. And so the AP is millions of times more. It necessarily so must be fitting millions of times more kilojoules of energy behind it in each concentrated amount of space, or centimeter cubed in this case. So all of this, I hope everybody's really understanding the logistics of it, because people in here don't. They truly don't. A lot of people say that, like, you would think that like this is common knowledge. I really wish it's 100% not. So that's why it's so weird. There's like weird people who are like, you're just trying to get out of a feat. It's like, no, you're trying to be lazy by just looking at what was destroyed and not actually trying to come up with the difference of AP and DC. I don't think there's anything else to go over on this specific thread. Nah. So we're gonna skip past that. Okay. So we're gonna continue with some of the good and go into some of the bad before moving on to the totally stupid. Alright. Let me check, make sure I'm actually recording. Still recording, that's good. Still good? Good. This is totally off the cuff if you can't tell. Let's see. So yeah, this is an interesting thing. Like what demon class would these characters be in Yu Yu Hakusho? These people. And people are giving examples what they think. I think this person gives a pretty good list. Orange Crush. Now he actually, like Wushu, is one of the people who shows to have a pretty good has a pretty good understanding on a conceptual level of things. So like D class is wall to building level, which I'll go in some of it. I actually I'll break down later some of the C class to D class things, but wall to building level D class, town to city level for C. I don't know about full city, but we'll see. Because city is actually unironically very close to mountain. It's not like you're jumping town to city, and city to mountain is like equivalent from city to town. That's quite a big difference. But mountains are generally made of rock and not a bunch of empty space, so it is more impressive, don't get me wrong. Anyways, lower B class is certainly at least mountain level, upscaling, mind you. Lastly is C class to B class does require more scaling, which luckily Toguro makes very, very easy. And we do have feats to scale from, of course. Mid B class, multi-mountain to island level. Multi-mountain to island, yeah. Island's a little iffy, I would say. So like, for example, the difference between mid B to lower B is less of a difference from upper B to mid B, to a degree, because it becomes exponentially so, that I think the difference of an upper B and a still other upper B person who could raffle stomp mid Bs, the difference between those two people who are still upper B would still probably be bigger than a mid B to a lower B. I would probably put like island to multi-island on upper B alone. But then like lower A class gets to country. I'd say that's pretty obviously so. Multi-country to continent. Anyways, the person has pretty good scaling. Has a pretty good idea of how Yu Hakusho scales. So I'm very happy there. He's like, when I say multi-island level, it doesn't necessarily mean in busting ability DC. I mean attack potency, AP. Thank you. And this is, you'll notice, he wasn't ever a person who was posting on the AP DC thread. So just someone who actually understands some concepts. Again, I don't know if one part, I hope that these people aren't subscribed to me, or I do hope that they are. I hope that these people didn't strictly get their ideas of backing the AP from DC differentiating from watching a video from me, because I would love to have a knowledge that I'm not alone, right? That there's other people who can reach logical conclusions off of just baseline understanding normal concepts, that it didn't have to come from me. But really, the real tragedy isn't that you might not know the concept. It's people who actively don't want to learn anything new. That's the stupid that I'll get to. Anyways. So, like, yeah, Toguro at less than 10% can one-shot mid-B class. As he did, he knocked his mid-B class brother an island and a half's distance. I don't want to bog down too much. Mostly I want to get into the logic of it. That's what this is about. Logic and what you'll find in Comic Vine. But yeah, like, you can do more damage to a tree with an axe, but it builds more powerful. He understands AP. I'm saying, like, yep, he's pretty much got it. Trying to remember if anything else really goes. There's other people who give their ideas. He gives some feats, yeah, like you'll see here at super base. When I say 10%, or when he says 10%, this isn't even to grow at 10%, going 100% over 100% being his full power. If we were to assume this is even 10% with how he looks, this would be more, this would actually be 5%, and you can see here, bottom left panel, the island versus where he lands. That's at least an island and a half distance, given the arena takes place, I believe, in the direct middle of the island. Yep. Oh, yeah, this thread, he gives scaling, we go into scaling. Do I want to cover this? I have covered it in a video before. You know what, I think I might save it later. This isn't logic based, other than like a backing of like, yeah, this is how Yu Hakusho scales. And I think I believe there were people wanting me to scale like from Toguro down, rather than just, you know, with Sensui, because I kind of started going from like S class and up. Yeah, I just did S class general scaling and then Hiei. So I might save that later. This one has a lot of scaling, which is all done really well, by the way. Orange Crush killed it, and really understands. He understands. Sorry, kind of distracted because yeah, all of the scaling. This is almost gonna make it the scaling video too easy for me, because I could just screen share like this. He understands what he's talking about, which is nice to see. Very nice to see. No idea. Let's see, like C class, mid B, dunno, A class. So this person, which I'm fine with calling out because I couldn't care less. I suppose, let me put a small disclaimer here. Anybody who does go to Comic Vine, please don't go after this person, but at the minimum level, they're anonymous. Mass. unironically, that they don't factor in mass into attacks. This person will come up later. Not for the better. Let's see. Don't want to waste too much time here. Does this thread go anywhere else past mostly scaling? Mostly talking about some statement-based things, which you know how I am with that. Don't care. Alright, so here, alright, finally, we're getting back into some logic. Now, through the scaling that's shown, we'll have someone say, like, okay, we're talking AP. Cool. How do we get from mountain level to multi-mountain level? And they're talking about, like, wow, that's a big jump. Like, that's really crazy jump, you know? And then they'll be like, which would mean Toguro is larger than if the 100% means times the power, which is 100. So she's thinking 100% higher means 100 times the power. That's very incorrect. Which has been explained before, but it will get explained again. But I'll just say it here. Yu Hakusho explicitly shows an exponential increase. As I've said, every 10% increase in total power, which is shown throughout many, many times, from Yusuke versus Hiei, Yusuke versus Suzaku, Toguro throughout literally everything he does, Sensui going from defensive armor to offensive armor. Like, I've covered this before, like, Sensui goes from defensive armor to offensive armor, and the difference is that he goes from the lowest S-class in the series to the lowest S-class in the series. And yet the difference in his potency of attacks goes from, I can do full contact blows against other A-classes, which was Kuwabara, Hiei, and Kurama. Full contact punches for minutes on end. Oh, I'm going to go offensive armor? And literally, don't you get near our aura. I'm not even attacking you. Don't get near our aura, because we'll accidentally kill you passively. What? So yeah, that's, and then of course, Toguro all around. Exponentially increased. So, for every, like, 10% total increase in power, you're getting about, like, a 2 times multiplier. The reason that the number 2 is being used is because it's obviously higher. So the lowballed number is a 2 times increase to stats, as Yu Hakusho scales in speed, durability, and AP, and all around just stats, to your total energy. About 2 times per 10% higher in total energy. So it's not that he got 100 times stronger. He actually got 2 to the 10th power times stronger. As, of course, 10% goes into 100% 10 times, if that wasn't clear. Let's see. Yeah, to add above, Toguro going from 80% to 100% isn't even a 20% increase. It's a 10% increase, as his real power is 100% over 100%. However, he's not only 10% more powerful going from 80 to 100, his base 100% would unironically be able to kill his 80% self with his thumb. Well, more like the air pressure of his thumb. Yeah, so if you think about it, if you remember, Cuffed Yusuke shot a point-blank spirit gun that drug Toguro, 80% Toguro, through the entire island and into a mountain, and he was totally unharmed. 80% Toguro was vastly above Cuffed Yusuke. Then he took the cuffs off, and now his punches just obliterated 80% Toguro, which are vastly weaker than the AP of his spirit guns. And he was way above that. 100% Toguro, base 100%, mind you, was so strong, of course, now he could block the uncuffed Yusuke with a thumb and yell away his spirit gun. Okay? Think about that. Oh, also his, at base 100%, that's when he started doing the air pressure finger flicks. And that was hurting uncuffed Yusuke, who was bodying 80% Toguro. Unironically, 100% factual, base 100% Toguro would kill 80% Toguro with the air pressure of his thumb. That is a 10% increase for B class, and it gets exponentially more for A class to S class. So when I'm saying like a 2 times multiplier for every 10%, even that would be higher and higher as you go from to A class and S class. And yet, of course, all my scaling has just been taking the 2% at bare minimum. Just for the sake of lowballing. Which you would see from my last video, you would see why I do that. Accuracy and consistency matters. And I think that pretty much wraps up this one. You know what? Actually, yeah, here we go. Last thing. So it's like, I would like to see a feat use case scales to in order for his AP to be mountain level. And this person was talking about in Dark Tournament. So let me cover some. Here's a prelude to my C class to B class scaling for Yu Hakusho. So it's been shown when looking at AP, we're looking at how much energy / force is produced that is also condensed down to whatever degree and dividing the amount destroyed by the AoE. So I'm explaining AP versus DC. The reason why this gets explained is because people on here legitimately don't know. They don't even have the concept. You know what, actually, before I read out this, let me tell you what it's like explaining these sorts of things on Comic Vine. And versus Battle Wiki, mind you. I'll stick with Comic Vine for now. It's like this. You know how, like, what are they? Teeter-tot? What is it? You know, the little playground thing, it sits on a fulcrum, two people sit on one side and they jump and go up and down. Essentially, is it a teeter-tot? Let's see. A seesaw, duh. Or a teeter-tot, sure. Cool. So, a seesaw. Now, right. How does this function? Well, generally, if you were to have it perfectly balanced, both sides would actually stay up equivalently on, like, they'd be equivalently on their side. As in, like, it'd be flat. It'd be a flat thing. Let's say both sides had weight on them, and you could take weight off. So say both sides had 500 pounds. 500 pounds on this seat, 500 pounds on this seat. And the 500 pounds was divided into, like, 10 50-pound cans, okay? Just for an example. So you got 10 cans here, 10 cans here. And say it was equally balanced. There's an equilibrium. What would happen if I moved one can from here and just took it off? Well, this would have less weight. And this side, well, it having more weight would go down. This seems like a pretty obvious thing, right? We are, in essence, explaining an idea of three-dimensional objects having weight and mass, because it's not just the seesaw in question, it's also with weight. We're exploring how three-dimensional objects with weight and mass interact in an equilibrium sense of like counterbalancing each other's weight. What happens when this weight is removed from another given this situation? Hopefully my description isn't too crazy or something. We're literally just talking about a seesaw and taking cans off. But imagine giving the explanation of taking cans off, taking the weight, removing weight from one side and saying this leads to the other side doing like this other thing in response, a simple cause and effect of one side being lifted up or going down because of the action of taking weight from the other. Imagine trying to explain what I just did and the other person literally cannot conceptualize it. Like, by conceptualize it, I don't mean like they can't picture it. I'm talking about like the concept of removing weight from one side having the effect that the balance is offset. Like, that concept is just over their heads. Like, they physically cannot think, I suppose, on that level. I don't know. And then you try to explain it, and they're like, I don't, that's not how it is. No, that's, if you take off a can from one side, nothing would happen. You would just have less weight. It's like, I mean, technically there'd be less weight total, but yeah, but there would be an effect on the other side. It's like, nah. It's like, do you just not understand it? It's like, no, you're the one who doesn't understand it. Okay. It's like, and then you press them, and then you'll hear something crazy like, dude, gravity doesn't even exist. And you're like, whoa, where the hell did that come from? Like, there are levels of stupid that will be shown. So concepts. We're talking about concepts. People need to be able to conceptually have understandings of, realistically, these basic things. Excuse me. Alright, so back to some of the scaling. Let's just kind of quickly go through it as quickly as I can. Byakko shoots out his blast here. You can see the size in the bottom middle one. The size of it compared to it vaporizing the total, it ends up vaporizing the whole thing, as we all remember. If you don't, find it yourself. But the AoE of the attack vaporizes the entirety of the structure here. Okay? Oh, also the structure is big enough to hold Byakko, who I believe comes out to like 9 feet tall. And their columns go all the way down into lava. They also withstand the heat of lava very well. And so, as an example, I looked at basalt, which is found near like volcanoes and such. So, and can like withstand the heat and things. So that's why I used basalt. That's why I was looking at it. So its total size, the amount destroyed, is destroyed by something with the AoE, vaporized, mind you, by the AoE of, well, this attack here. Yeah, he's a high D-class demon, and he can vaporize entire rock structures bigger than himself, yada yada yada. Now, remember that 24.7 kilojoules of energy when I looked at basalt? So, lowballed, we'll take the lowball, which is the 24.7 kilojoules of energy for every centimeter cubed. That comes out to a shout energy of this many joules, or this much tons of force compacted into that AoE. However, if we were to just look at the totality of the energy produced and only care about the DC, since the totality is the only thing that's going to be factored in there to the DC, and not the divided down to centimeter cubed part, the DC comes out to large building level. With the AP, at bare minimum, it's double that, given its size is less than half of what it's destroying, quite obviously. So we'll take double, like 2 large building levels of AP, bare minimum. Okay? Because the compacted force and the centimeter cubed, never mind. We can move on past that. I believe in you guys. I've lost faith in humanity too many times, but I believe in you. Seiryu can one-shot Byakko. More impressive, Hiei can one-shot Seiryu in turn, because he could have done it with one slice. He sliced him up 16 times, he could have decapitated him with the first one. So is it really easy, this easy for these characters to one-shot each other? Yes, that's the gap we're talking about. So if you remember, back with Rando specifically, Yusuke runs out of energy, goes to punch Rando, and he's like, that does nothing. You don't have any energy, you don't have any spirit energy behind your punches anymore. It is quite literally the amount of energy you have that dictates the amount of force you can produce into whatever attack you're doing, which kind of seems like a no-duh thing. But since, with durability, scaling, and everything on that nature, Seiryu being able to one-shot Byakko means something. Hiei being able to one-shot Seiryu means something. Okay? And the something that's being mean here is their actual energy output. And what it shows is the total difference between them all, because Seiryu would be like low C class at best. Hiei would be also a low C class at best, and yet can one-shot him, because the difference between low C to low C is that high. Alright. Now, here we also have like, Yusuke Spirit Gun is greater than a casual Hiei or Yusuke Punch, right? Or just physical strike. As even the very first time he got the Spirit Gun, it was 2 times more potent than his punches, let alone now. And, Suzaku can bat it away with a fist. Cool. That's pretty awesome. Well, then we can see things like, he can turn, here, like, normal humans will be reduced to cinders by mere touch alone. Well, that's a statement that doesn't have any feet. That doesn't have any proof. Oh, wait. Actually, Byakuya had walked out of straight lava, which would also melt a human. Like, after a while, mind you. So it is even more impressive than lava. Byakuya is a high D class. So, given that Seiryu can one-shot, Suzaku could easily, obviously, one-shot. It's backed. It's a statement that is backed. It is not simply just a statement. But he can do it with but a touch. How much AoE do you think is within a touch? Very tiny. Let's go over something else. For context, cremating a human body is usually heat at around 1400 to 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. It takes about 3 hours. And he can match that in an instant, which has far more, way more heat, way more joules of energy. The heat and the energy, it would be far more, to a degree that it is compacted within, let's just keep centimeters cubed. But centimeters cubed, right? Compacted into how much? How many times is centimeters cubed divided into? The AoE of the touch. Holy crap. Right? Right? Are we getting an idea here? Yeah, basically, yeah, Suzaku's really strong. That's not his strongest attack, obviously. Some of it's like, actually, I guess this would be, last thing is, see, like, is it this one? Yeah. Well, you're protected by a surprisingly strong layer of Reiki. You're the first human to have come in contact with it and without dying. Yeah, so he gets barely tagged. If you remember, he, like, dodges. Yeah, so he, like, dodges, but, like, the electricity that's, like, going out from the thing still, like, gets to him. And he survives it because his spirit energy also scales to durability. Duh. Not every verse does that, mind you. But Yu Hakusho, actually, feat-wise, proves it. So as we go, yeah, we can see this is Yusuke firing a warning shot against Toguro at one point. It's the strongest one at the period of time, which means we know that it is more potent than anything else that he's ever done. So, look at its size compared to the island. Here's something I want to make very clear. Remember how I say the feats show a certain amount? That without scaling, the feat shows a certain amount of DC, and from that we can extrapolate a minimum amount of AP required to do the feat. Scaling is a separate thing to make us be more accurate, which we should care about. For example, the DC, given the size of that spirit gun there, it's not going to take out the whole island, mind you, but it would take out massive amounts of the island. The AoE of that attack, you could, if we were to just have it destroy like half the island, and we didn't know, like, with no scaling, it being bigger would make the feat weaker. Because, of course, if you could do the same feat with something smaller, that would be obviously more impressive. With scaling, which this applies to all series, we know that this is more potent than anything else he's ever fired. Meaning, the DC, from what we can tell that it would be able to do, based on everything else all the other spirit guns have been able to do, We know the AP is much higher than its DC. This would be an easy case for the AP to be island level. Of course, this is fully like, woe is me, Kuwabara is dead from Toguro, fully awakened Yusuke. So this is top of B class, getting to island level. Very easy to argue, multi-island level. But I would still say island level here until he gathers. We'll get to that, and then I'll be moving on to the stupid. But you can see his spirit gun goes forth and uproots kilometers of trees. With the air pressure, it is not touching anything. Oh, but wait, you see that water being lifted up by the air pressure? Look how high it, look at the height of the island, right? How high up is the water being raised by the air pressure? It in fact also does this later. So when he does the demon gun against Sensui, it actually never makes contact. You remember that big long crater that goes over the horizon? It never made contact. It actually just vaporized all that area without ever making contact with the ground. As it kind of, you can see here at B class what it can do with air pressure. And yeah, so that gives somewhat of a prelude to the scaling. Because, again, if you remember, that wasn't actually Yusuke. That was Yusuke at his strongest point. Yeah, nothing else here. That was Yusuke at his strongest point against Toguro. But it was just a warning shot, actually. He punches him, kind of is like, whoa, yeah, I'm like beyond your level now. And then he does the warning shot. Then Toguro goes 100% over 100%. Yusuke's like, just give me everything you got. I don't care if I never fire another spirit gun again. I'm going to gather all my energy, focus it all into one point, which is making it as potent as possible. I'm going to use the last of my energy. And then that's when 100% over 100% Toguro matches it. That's the one that you could argue is multi-mountain level, which Toguro matches, which is why you can argue the height of B+, not simply B+, is multi-mountain. And let's see. You know what? Let me just get to the stupid. Alright, there's two things that go into the stupid. We have Rengoku and the other person, Massive. And it gets really stupid. So, again, don't attack them if you are on my channel and you go on Comic Vine. I would actually really hate that. That would be a very low thing to do. They can just choose not to click on my video or something. You don't have to go after them, right? But it kind of needs to be brought out. This is, if you're talking about Comic Vine, this is what you need to beware of. Be knowledgeable of. Be cognitive. Never mind. Cognitive of. Anyways. So, talking about size of things, yeah. Okumin trees compared to the size of the Beheaded Hill that's taken out. And yeah, so he's like, and since we did blow away the Beheaded Hill with just air pressure, his signature attack is way greater than the full contact blow, which is way greater than the air pressure of the AP. His signature attack, by the way, you'll see he has several special moves, which all at minimum are at least going to match the AP difference that Yusuke's very first spirit gun was. 2 times multiplier. How much more can you lowball it? This is all true. Done super casually, also true. Naruto and Sasuke had to avert their full attention and destroy the meteors with effort. Also at full contact. Also requiring far more AoE. Naruto's attacks are massive to destroy. They were actually bigger than the meteors being destroyed. And Sasuke, far less AoE than the meteors he was destroying, but still with a sword that's thousands of times bigger than, like, Sensui's hand, because it's the sword of his Susanoo. I mean, and full contact, and doesn't destroy everything, let alone pulverize it into dust. Huh. And Susanoo's a special move. It's like, it's not like it was Sasuke with his sword. It was his Susanoo specialty and the sword of that thing. Anyways. He's just talking about they're just talking about the sizes of things for now. But, let's see, you're going to accuse him of not understanding the content, you're going to prove it. It's content. Let's see, so, okay. Cutting a moon in half is multi-continental feat. You know that, right? Not to mention it was hollow. Hollow equals empty space, meaning it was less dense by a considerable amount. Why would it matter that it's less dense? Well, that's because it requires less energy, of course, to go through it. I don't know how people don't understand it. That should be an obvious thing. This person even says, like, it being partially hollow is why I downgraded from multi-continental to continental, yada yada. He's like, Naruto overpowered one and no-sold the other. And Sasuke is equal to whatever, you know, Naruto's done. However, this is, of course, a DC feat. The AP is unknown. It could be rock level, as I've explained before, because the DC is, you know, multi-continental level. But so what? Because the beam that cut the moon was literally longer than the moon itself. So yeah, like Naruto beating Toneri doesn't mean he has more raw DC than Toneri does. Of course, I would say, of course Naruto doesn't have as much DC as Toneri. He doesn't have a move with enough AoE, right? Because that's what multiplicatively goes into DC. Just means Naruto's AP is higher than Toneri's durability. Well, of course, because it doesn't matter if your DC is above someone's durability. AP is what factors in against durability. And he's like, not relevant. Naruto tanked the attack once, durability. Yeah, durability against the AP of the attack. And overpowered it once, AP. Sure. But what he overpowered and tanked was the AP of the Moon Slice. Not the DC. We don't know what the AP of the Moon Slice was. It scales to attack stronger than, like, let's say a base Rasen Shuriken. Sure, so you could, like, use that. You could say it has more potency than that, I suppose. But even then, like, does it? Like, could Naruto, like, just run face first into one of his own Rasen Shurikens and take, like, no damage like he did with Toneri's thing? It might not even have as much AP as that. But he's trying to essentially take DC to equal AP. So I try to explain it. I'm like, you don't understand the difference between AP and DC, and I don't have the time to show you. I'm playing D&D right now. D&D's awesome, by the way. But yeah, since we busted what he did in pure AP, Toneri was DC. The difference is the AoE versus the size of what they busted is the quick means of telling you. Additionally, since we busted with air pressure alone, casually and accidentally, and was a basic punch and not even a special technique, the DC of the feat stays the same. Regardless of any factors, what's destroyed is destroyed. That's the DC of it. The AP is far different, and I can only hope you learn what differentiates them, as again, I don't have the time right now. Logic wins, being accurate should matter. Hiei wins, it's simple. He has the better feats in scaling. And he's like, yeah, when did Naruto tank a continental level attack? He's gonna say, when he smacked him with a beam that cut the moon in half. And he's like, and then he says to me, actually, it's you who doesn't understand the difference between DC, AP. Well, so I'm like, and he's been in other threads. I give, like, the math behind, like, how AoE, DC, AP works, and, like, all I've pretty much ever gotten is, you're the one who doesn't understand. It's actually like, debating with, like, flat earthers or, like, anti-vaxxers who don't understand, like, so, like, debating with an anti-vaxxer, and then, like, you bring up the concept of herd immunity, right? And then it's like, I don't believe in that. It's like, what? But then you give, like, proof, and it's like, you're the one who doesn't understand herd immunity. What? So all I've ever really gotten is like, nah, no you. Uno reverse card. Let's see. Yeah, the APDC's for me. Let's see. Let's see. So, I don't care about the statement stuff. Okay, so here, this person's like, prove he's above continental. I'm talking about Sensui. Prove he's above continental with a casual attack and do it with feats, not statements, because as I've said above, that gets messy for you, or anyone, especially if you want to try the Naruto game. But, so I go like, if you understand the difference between AP and DC, why do you keep bringing up Toneri's Moon Slice as if it's some crazy AP feat? You obviously don't know the difference, and it's hurting your ability to know why Yu Hakusho was so above Naruto. You message what you think, so I'm like, you message what you think the difference is, and probably within 4 hours, I'll post what I know it to be. We can compare, but I guarantee whatever your understanding of AP and DC is entirely incorrect. He goes, DC is destructive capacity. AP is attack potency. It's that simple. Wow. AP is a term for attack that can hurt strong characters without being destructive. You clearly don't know what it is, or you think Yu Hakusho has some massively high AP that it actually doesn't have. Imagine being asked to explain what you think a concept is, and then giving this as an answer. Maybe it doesn't sound that bad to you guys. Imagine that you have someone who's like actually studied up on rocket science, okay? Actual like rocket science. They are going towards being a rocket scientist. Let's see real quick, just to get the actual full definitions. Yeah, I can't type. And, you know what, I guess I need the word definition. Definition, science definition. Definition. Cool. So, imagine being asked to explain a concept. Like, you message what you think the difference is. So, what's the difference between them? Like, and I'd asked before as well. It's like, explain like what you think it is. And imagine being so sure of yourself that you're saying the other person is wrong with everything that I've brought up before, and your answer is this. Let's compare this. Let's remove DC. Instead of DC, we'll say rocket. We'll treat it like rocket. Instead of AP, we'll say science. Imagine this answer is equivalent to something like, well, a rocket is a cylindrical projectile that can be propelled to a great height or distance. Science is the intellectual and practical activity of encompassing the systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical blah blah blah. So cool. He defines those. It's that simple. Rocket science is the science of rockets. I mean, am I supposed to be impressed by that? That's essentially what this is. It's like DC is DC. AP is AP. It's that simple. AP is a term for attack that can hurt. I mean, wow, I hope you didn't hurt your brain too much thinking about that. So basically you have no idea how it works. You can tell me rocket science is the science of rockets, but what you're telling me is you have literally not the first clue how they're different, how you would go about differentiating them, how they happen at all. You have literally no idea. This was one of the weakest replies I've ever gotten. This is him going after a statement of the Sensui thing. Who cares? He does pixel scaling, which has problems with it. But for example, like if you want to pixel scale, and you're just gonna count the pixels of like this one up here, this Okumen tree here. I've never bothered to do pixel scaling, so maybe I'm wrong here, because inherently pixel scaling has a lot of problems, so I don't think it's accurate enough in most cases for me to care enough to go for the math behind it. But if you're counting by the pixels, I doubt that factors in perspective, such as things closer to us are bigger, and if things are bigger, they take up more pixels, right? Because if that's the case, then this is totally incorrect. It would be the size of that yellow line would be smaller and smaller as you bring it to the back, aka where the beheaded hill is. But just using this, he gets beheaded hill to be something like small country to country size. So that's his DC feat. That would be Sensui's DC with his air pressure. Okay, so he's like, explain to me why Sensui, why you think Sensui is higher than, country level? Because he's just saying, nah, Sensui's country level. Actually, let me, I've also talked to this person several times. I try to explain, let's just talk about air pressure real quick. Does anybody really, truly, honest to God, think that if you punch something full contact, that it carries the same amount of force as if you stopped short of their face and let the air pressure of the fist of your punch hit them? Like, are we in the same universe? Because this person thinks that. He says, unironically, Sensui's AP is country level. Let's take everything else out. Let's take the math of AP versus DC out. Let's take everything out. He doesn't see the difference between Sensui busting what he did, a country-sized amount of rock, with the air pressure, and him busting it without the air pressure. It's the same to him. And the concept of air pressure being weaker than the actual total, full force of the not air pressure, that concept doesn't exist to him. This exists on Comic Vine. Wow. Then there's everything else. I'm like, this is what you're getting. This is why what you're getting doesn't add up to what at least I'm saying. It's what the other person showed they don't understand with their tinted explanation, which is the Rengoku guy. Rocket science is the science of rockets. So when I say Sensui is where he is, I'm talking about AP. DC is irrelevant towards durability. But here's what AP is down to mathematics. And then I copy paste the math, which hopefully now with the centimeters cubed, that can further help people have an understanding of volume, spatial understanding, and recognizing that you are condensing into a smaller amount of space. The more joules of energy that are within that space condensed, the higher the AP. I mean, logically so, it hurts my brain that people can't understand that. So then I say, if you understand and use this concept, you get the actual correct AP amounts for people. It contextualizes feats. Sensui's feat was air pressure, not direct. The direct hit is obviously much more potent. He somehow doesn't get that. We went over it multiple times. He did it casually, which is just argument's sake, yada yada. It was a punch, not an actual blast, like a spirit gun or anything that he can do, which of course, super minimum would be 2 times more potent. Yada yada yada. I don't care about the DC. We're talking AP. And then I also did a copy paste. So this wasn't to him directly, but this was to somebody else saying that. So remember when Yusuke fired off his demon gun the first time when he resurrected Sensui? He fired off the demon gun and he missed Sensui and he blew up a mountain in the background. And Sensui's like, dang, if that hit me, I'd be roasted right now. Somebody took that. He's like, oh, the DC destroyed a mountain. And Sensui said he'd be roasted by that. So mountain level attacks would possibly kill Sensui. That was an actual argument someone gave. So to them, I posted and then I copy pasted the math because he really doesn't. He can't conceptualize it. He can't bring himself to understand the literal simple concept of AP and DC and how they differentiate. So I'm like, is it on purpose? Do you really not know how AP and DC differentiate? I'm like, okay, it's widespread. So look, man, it's like this, okay? Are you to tell me that the power of attacks is judged based solely on how much matter it can destroy? Is that it? It seems to be. Yusuke's spirit gun destroyed but a mountain and therefore mountain level? Let's break it down for anyone who needs it. Let's take a sword versus a bullet, which I've done many times as an example. You know those shows that show off swords on pig carcasses and how sharp they are and such? There are swords that can cleave the pig in half. Actually, real quick, how I say, show off how sharp they are? Real quick, can anyone tell me why sharpness, no, not why, just how sharpness affects the potency of things? The how or why. Something being sharper allows for damage to be caused easier. How or why is that the case? From everything I've said. I'm not going to give the answer. It should be clear as hell. Alright. There are swords that can cleave the pig in half. To say the potency of something equals how much matter is destroyed is to say that you unironically believe the sword swing is greater than a bullet in potency. That's you. Because it destroyed far more matter after all. Is this really how you think potency is? You must realize that you're merely looking at DC. The AoE, which matters, of the bullet or attack, is simply too small to have a high DC. It's still more potent though. Yusuke's spirit gun there is mountain level DC. The AP is around moon level. Really, it would actually be higher, as... No, it would be about moon level, yeah. Because Sensui's feat, mind you, in total AP, full contact and everything, is not moon level. However, if we were to just give it the extra boost of, oh hey, literally the bare bottom scraping for, pennies here, lowballing, saying that any of his energy attacks are only 2 times more powerful, equivalently in difference to the very first spirit gun that Yusuke ever fires, that reaches moon level. So let's just say it's moon level. It's that moon level potency packed into the centimeters cubed, if you will, divided into AoE of the attack. That's the amount of potency that would really have hurt Sensui. So I'm like, this was from someone actually trying to argue that the spirit gun Yusuke used that busted a mountain meant mountain level attacks could hurt or kill Sensui. And then I get like, I think you're the one confused. Alright, well prove me wrong. Let's see some proof. Alright, I'm ready for some logic. There is no huge difference between AP and DC. Oh. Well, let's see why he says that. DC shows how much was destroyed and AP is the power contained within each attack. It's simple. Okay, well, can you explain, like, you're just trying to, like, give... Science is this, rockets are this. Do you have any... Can you show an understanding? You're using it like some sort of extra power-up that doesn't exist. Doesn't exist how? Can you prove that? 1, and 2, it's not necessarily a power-up. It can also be a dividend. If the AoE, the bigger the AoE is compared to what it's destroying, the, less impressive it is. It's not always just the more impressive it is. So he just tries to make an argument that Yu Hakusho is more about AP than anything else, but so is everyone else. That's a total lie. He tries to say like author's intent is the reason why his attacks are AP not DC. Listen, author's intent isn't author's intent. It's not author's intent that makes it AP or DC based on this guy's argument. It's more so his interpretation of what he thinks the author's intent is why it's more about AP and not DC, is really what he's saying. Author's intent is terrible. And then this Rengoku, you're confused. You can't have AP without DC. I'm going to repeat that. You're confused. You can't have AP without DC. He's saying if there is no DC, there is no AP. The force of the attack doesn't exist if it doesn't cause damage. You're confused. I'm the confused one. Because, after all, his name is Rengoku, right? So, I mean, obviously he has the correct answer. I mean, he doesn't need to qualify this in any way. He doesn't need to... It's just... Sure, we don't need proof from Rengoku, our god. I'm the confused one? Because you can't have AP without DC. Let me break that down, what that means. Imagine somebody was wearing plate mail, and I took a blunt sword, like a practice sword. Let's just take a wooden sword, right? A bokken. And I was to hit that plate mail, or a person wearing the plate mail, full plate mail, with the wooden sword. How much DC did I do? 0, right? This man thinks that therefore there's no AP. I wish that man would stand in front of me without that plate mail. since we just saw it did no DC, I'm going to do that same strike, since it, theoretically, in his opinion, should still have no AP, right? Please. Oh. We have the good, the bad, then we have the stupid. The stupid. He's like, you don't add a random multiplier to AP. Duh. You are very confused. I don't know why you're quoting Anime Freak, kid. Blah, 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 blah. I'll break this down for you. DC equals destructive capacity. Rockets equal this. AP equals attack potency. Science equals this. AoE equals area of effect. Rocket science is the science of rockets. DC is what you can bust. It's that simple. It literally stands for destructive capacity. If you can bust a mountain, you're a mountain buster with a mountain level DC. Wow. Informative. So it's not that he knows how it works. He doesn't know how to extrapolate anything. He can simply just give how he defines it. AP is potency. It's what you can hurt, because it goes against the durability, which factors into the DC, because if the durability is too high, you're going to have less DC. Oh. You can't have AP without scaling from DC or durability. Luckily, we're scaling the AP from the DC, the country-sized beheaded hill that since we busted. Anyways, beheaded hill was a DC feat, not an AP one. Everything, whenever something is destroyed, everything's a DC feat. And then you extrapolate the AP from it. He just doesn't know how. He doesn't even know the concept of how. He doesn't even begin to comprehend on a basic, like, 4th grader level how. But then we get AoE is area of effect and doesn't have to correlate with DC. Yeah, you heard that right. He thinks it's possible for AoE to not correlate with DC. He thinks that it's possible for an attack to be the size of a fist and another attack to be the size of a mountain. They both can have the same AP, since all we care about is the DC here. And since AoE doesn't have to matter, he thinks equivalent AP, size of a fist versus the size of a mountain in attacks. The DC can be the same. Are you kidding me? Yeah, I just say that the reply is extremely weak, and I explain it. It's like, are you saying that if Superman punches a wall and all that breaks is a wall, his punch is wall level? AP, because the AP, which, as you say, is the power contained within the attack, you realize that can be bigger than the DC, which, as you say, is the AoE destroyed by the attack, right? You know that, right? If your response is only city-level AP punches are still just city-level, your multiplier is a pure lie, then there really is no point. Simply there is no point. No point in continuing to read. There are some really, really dumb people on Comic Vine. Yeah, here's another example I give, like, and I get it. Just say from the get-go you think a sword that causes more damage than a bullet is more potent, or that destroying a mountain with an attack the size of a fist and the same mountain with an attack the size of a mountain are equal. It's ridiculous, but it at least make the process faster. I truly can't tell if anything said by you two has been said in good faith. I'm honestly not sure you believe what you're typing. I'm more convinced now, so they stuck with it. They might actually, that's why I'm saying the good, the bad, and the stupid, not like the good, the bad, and like the bad faith, like just Yu Hakusho haters. I think they actually believe what they're attempting to say. But I even broke it down mathematically. Somehow you think there are random multipliers or something. Like you guys unironically believe that so yeah, here's an example. Like you guys unironically believe that if we were to make a bet on what would injure a character with an unknown amount of heat resistance, join in on this bet. There's a character with an unknown amount of heat resistance. To some level, he resists heat. And we drop them off. We can drop them off in one of two different like situations. Situation one, a forest fire. Or we can drench them in lava. Another example I've used many times. they would unironically believe that the forest fire would be more likely to kill them due to its heat, because it has more DC than a small amount of lava, after all. Backwards logic, indeed. Yeah, I'm telling, like, you sound like a flat Earth theorist to me. Basically, I want to make it clear, there is good, there is bad, then there is stupid. Here's another person like Zabuza, right? If you care about proper scaling, there are people here. Zabuza gives a lot of good examples. He also has shown to understand like concepts. He gives a bunch of feats. You'll notice that only the people supporting Yu Hakusho are giving actual feats, and then everybody else is like, no you, no you. Here's another idea for a feat, by the way. So when when Yusuke knocks the 48 other, or 43 other S-class demons into orbit, understand the size of Demon World. Let's lowball, because this would be the closest to the stars. Let's say he did it from this Okumin tree here, the furthest one back, even though I believe it should be one that's actually closest to us, so close that we can't even see it, because I'm pretty sure this is the girl who is overseeing the fight. And they were punched in that direction. Let's just really lowball, and let's say it's the closest one to the stars, well, the people, that they were fighting on that one. Again, concepts here. Please stick with me on the conceptual level of things. The further away things are, the smaller they appear. End of concept. Hopefully you can understand that. Right. Okumin trees are massive as hell. How far back would we have to move this Okumin tree to get it into like the same point where those people were knocked back? And tell me, like, how far did he punch them, right? Like, Jesus Christ. That's honestly an amazing feat. And they were all punched so fast that, like, they all are, like, relative to the same distance to each other. So he moved fast enough to actually hit each of them individually in a time frame that they could be moving almost at the same time and have them all reach this distance. Which, of course, for them to reach this distance in the amount of time that they did, like almost panel to panel, that's speed, by the way. That's the formula. Speed equals distance divided by time. They reached this distance, where they became stars, in a very short amount of time. And yet Yusuke had enough time to knock them all so fast that they actually were relative to the same distance of each other. Holy crap. Anyways, yeah, there is people who actually understand stuff. There is good, there is bad, then there's stupid. That's my last time saying that. I'm sorry. I think next I will perhaps, I have a couple ideas. So, yeah, I would enjoy going over, the idea isn't ever to harp specifically on Yu Hakusho. Again, it's interesting because Yu Hakusho is very lowballed, whereas something like Naruto specifically, though I would argue this with any series that is overhyped. But the contrast between a series that's lowballed versus a series that's overhyped is interesting. Because, again, you can see the different ideas that people have or attempt to rack their brains to have. But at least it's interesting. It's much more interesting than Frieza one-shots your planet. GG. Well, yeah, it's way stronger than My Hero Academia. No, but there's no argument to be had. But I have been getting more Yu Hakusho support, so I'm thinking if that's what's wanted, I'd be totally happy to do, like, from Toguro down for some scaling. I would be happy to do scaling in terms of, like, the villains, as well as, say, Kuwabara, Kurama. Yusuke, I mean, of course I'd be happy to do it, but it would almost be a mimic of Hiei, because they are the two that are, like, absolutely relative to each other, whereas Kurama is slightly less, and Kuwabara even more less. Another thing I'm wanting to do is have a Discord debate with somebody. I would love to have an actual, like, proper, formalized debate with somebody with, for example, let's say Yusuke versus Naruto. That would be nice, and I think that would be interesting. I have low faith, however, in an ultimate sense. I don't know. I'm jaded by now because I just don't trust people to understand conceptual ideas. And so if you, like, you can't have an argument about, like, a lot of certain things if they can't even be convinced, like, that gravity exists or something, right? Like, on conceptual levels, if you can't even agree on certain, like, understandings of concepts, you just can't have a conversation. And I fear that people tend to not be capable of understanding concepts. That's as easy as it is. But I would enjoy a debate. That would be interesting. And then maybe just inherently getting back to some other versus battles that could be cool. But another thing that I would like to do would be potentially going over non-scaling things, because I am more focused on logic of things. But I really appreciate, it doesn't have a place, in my opinion, it doesn't have any place with power scaling, but it's not like author's intent doesn't mean anything. It just doesn't mean anything really for when we power scale. But author's intent is awesome for things like foreshadowing and like character development and like world building. All of that's really cool. I would love to cover some different series, especially ones that I haven't read before. I could maybe read ones that people have would like to shout out or something. Yeah, and I could cover it. I mean, you'll just have to take my word. I read through Hajime no Ippo, which has, of course, 1,300 plus chapters. I actually predicted literally every single fight correctly. All of them. Through all 1,300 chapters. Because the foreshadowing, in my opinion, was too obvious. But I used to read manga to the degree that I needed to have at least 8 to 10 manga pages up at the same time, so that I could keep myself, like, entertained. I don't know, my attention isn't that short, but dang, I just read manga to a degree that I would read manga, and instead of being bored and tired of, like, okay, I just read, 100 chapters of this manga, and then, like, going on with my day to do something else, I would replace the doing something else with, okay, I'm gonna read this manga now. And I would just have like 8 to 10 up at all times. I think I've gotten very good at figuring out like how authors like to set up foreshadowing for things. And we could cover that, character development and all that things. That would be interesting. But yeah, that's it. That's Comic Vine. You will find people who have logic, but you will find people that there is no hope for, and there is no point. And it's totally fine, in my opinion, to not bother with that. Just go on about your day. I'm Zalius. I hope you enjoyed the video. I would love for more things to come. I'm still very busy. My child is now finally reaching about 3 months old, and he's finally learned what time to go to sleep. Yay! That helps so much for me. Hopefully I can start putting out more videos. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe. That always helps. I would love to build up, a bigger channel. And yeah, just in general, hope you enjoyed the video. That's it. Ciao.